Happiness. What exactly is it? An emotion, a state of mind, something that lies deeply within the core of our heart. Whatever it is, it feels great to be happy, doesn't it? All the choices and decisions we make in a day are in pursuit of making us happier people. But being happy is much easier said than done. In a recent survey taken by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, people across 37 countries rated their satisfaction in life on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the highest. The average at the end of that survey, a low 6.6. Above average perhaps, but shows that still a large portion of people are unhappy. All too many people try to find happiness within an elusive goal, which is probably why the result of this survey was a 6.6. In order to live our lives to the fullest, we need happiness. And in order to find happiness, we need to first define what it is. Look at the reasons why it's so elusive. See its practical impact on our day-to-day lives, and then finally, we can search for ways to reach greater heights of happiness. Most people don't wake up in the morning going, "May I please suffer the whole day?" Which means somehow, in some way, we as human beings, consciously or not, strive to be happy. But what is happiness? Having lots of money, being smart, being popular, sporting good looks. Are these the things that define lasting happiness? Defining happiness at times can seem as perplexing as actually achieving it. You've all heard the saying, money makes the world go round. But contrary to popular belief, money doesn't necessarily cause happiness. A study done by Princeton University's Woodrow Wilson School found that incomes over $75,000 a year had little to no effect on an individual's happiness. Better education, at least according to some studies, doesn't always provide that uplift either. Neither do bigger and fancier homes, which instead seem only to provide the privilege of more space in which to feel gloomy. Amy Winehouse, an amazing and successful musician, who had all the material possessions to be happy, turned to drugs and later committed suicide. Michael Jackson and Heath Ledger were equally as talented personalities, but drugs once again took their course. These people seemed to have had it all. The money, the fame, the respect. They had the lives we can only dream of. But even with all that, why did they need to use drugs to be happy? Why weren't they satisfied with having it all? What could they have been possibly missing? Perhaps it is because they, like many of us, were seeking relative instead of pursuing absolute happiness. The concepts of relative and absolute happiness root themselves deeply in most Eastern religions. Buddhism, for instance, teaches that relative happiness depends on things outside of our body, such as friends, family, income, and surroundings. This kind of happiness comes along when something we want is accomplished, only it is not permanent. Absolute happiness, on the other hand, is permanent and lies within our very core and definition of who we are as a person. This is when we are happy just for being alive and gratefully wake up in the morning every day. It's being satisfied yet happy with what we have and setting goals to become something more as a human being. So we know what happiness is. The next step is to ask, what do I gain from being happy? For years, scientists have studied for the connections between health and happiness, and new studies have begun to prove what traditions have known, that having a solid sense of happiness leads to a healthier, more balanced, and longer life. Harvard School of Public Health Assistant Professor Laura Kubzansky conducted a study that followed more than 6,000 men and women aged 25 to 74 for 20 years. She found that emotional vitality, a sense of enthusiasm, of hopefulness, of engagement in life, and the ability to face life stresses with an emotional balance reduced the risk of coronary heart disease. Happiness doesn't only help with health, but affects us in our daily work as well. Many people believe that if we work hard, we are successful, which in turn makes us happier. Maybe if I get that promotion, I'll be happy. Or maybe if I get those rock-solid abs I've been dreaming about, I'll be happy. But world's leading positive psychology expert and best-selling author Shawn Achor sees the causes and effects of happiness very differently. Instead of success fueling happiness, it's much the contrary. Happiness directly fuels success. A study done by Shawn shows that by being happy alone, productivity increases by 31%. You are 40% more likely to receive a promotion at a job, nearly 10 times more engaged at work, live longer, and get better grades. Just by being happy. All of this is possible. So the natural thing to ask is, how? The shelves of happiness in bookstores are now crowded with titles, and it seems clear that no single prescription will work for everyone. With so many strategies and variations on pursuing happiness, it's hard to pinpoint an exact path. Caught up in our busy, fast-paced lives, we rarely contemplate on how happy we truly are. How many people in this room wake up and take a moment to appreciate the fact that you woke up in the first place? How many of us are willing to give to others unconditionally? How many of us, when looking back at our lives, see the positives, triumph over the negatives? And how many of us, if asked, have you ever been truly happy, would say yes, without a doubt? There is a mind-boggling range of options when it comes to finding happiness. But if you take a collective look at all of the solutions that are offered, they can be narrowed down to 3 basic principles. Having emotional vitality, or a sense of enthusiasm to live life to the fullest, is the basis of these teachings. Possessing an optimistic perspective that good things can and will happen in life builds on top of that. And finally, establishing and having a supportive network of friends and family holds everything together. Sure, I may sound like just another over-optimistic motivational speaker who thinks happiness is done easier than said. But we need to understand that no thing or nobody will give us our happiness. Our happiness will continue to be defined by our genes and our environment unless we can make conscious changes to our mindsets and habits. As the Dalai Lama himself said, happiness is not something ready-made. It comes from our own actions. If we can change our habits and mindsets, our happiness will no longer remain under the tyranny of our genes, childhood, and environment, and we can achieve happiness, no matter what life decides to throw at us. Here's to the strong, the hardy, the optimists, the ones who see things differently. Even in the worst of times, they still find a reason to strive. Because the ones who believe to think they can find happiness within themselves are the ones who actually do. The ones who learn to look within. Because sometimes the answers to life's greatest questions are right in front of us. Right back where we started, in our heart.